You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. Week 3 is in the books, so you've got the best 2 with you tonight. Unfortunately, not the best 3, just the best 2, the main 2, the only 2 that you need. It's me and Kev. Kev, I'll bring you in. You can follow on X at the Dynasty Mind. Kev, how are you doing this evening, my friend?
I've got to admit, I had a little chuckle as I was loading up. Then I saw you having a puff on the inhaler. I was thinking, wow, he's getting amped for this one. He's getting pumped up. And you know what? Like I'm a little bit under the weather. I've got more ice in me than Jaden Daniels, I guess. But yeah, looking forward to a great show tonight. We've got some fantastic topics. And yeah, it's the best 2, right? How you doing?
Oh, 100%. Well, I'll probably call myself questionable. Got the questionable tag, but I should be in the lineups this week. I'll be off the injury reports by the weekend, but yeah, still a little bit under the weather. Still got a cough, so apologise if I ruin tonight's show with all the coughing. But yeah, in terms of fantasy this week, had a really good week. Won most of my matchups, and yeah, DFS was good as well. So we're not going to talk about real life NFL because that does not matter. All we care about is Dynasty. So we are going to be recapping week 3 of the Dynasty season. And yep, Kev, you've mentioned it there. We've got some great topics tonight, some positives and also some negatives. And then we're finishing up with a game of our confidence levels. So topic number 1, Kev, it's over to you. This is a riser, so a positive impact this week and no surprises for who you've gone with.
No, I'm in green. I'm wearing green. The Eagles won. This guy has been on fire as it to start the season. Saquon Barkley. Look, he's been absolutely fantastic to start the season. Like, I think there were some reservations regarding what his ceiling could be in fantasy this season. But running back 1 on the week, it's the second time he's done that this season. And a lot of it's to do with volume. Look, 26 touches, and then 21 touches this week. 5 touchdowns, which I'm not expecting 5 touchdowns every 3 games to carry on throughout the season. But I would say there's also upside. Only 10 catches in those 3 contests. There's injuries at the wide receiver spot as well. So I think there is room to grow in the pass game usage. And if the Eagles get behind in more games, then I think that can definitely grow. I think other positives, like the brotherly shove, that's been ineffective so far. So maybe it was all about Jason Kelce and what he could do from the middle of the O-line. But back to Saquon, I think, well, elite usage, pass game upside. The O-line is still fantastic in the run game. And it's got me thinking about, like, if you're looking at this season for Saquon in fantasy, what's his range of outcomes? Where can he finish? And being truthful, I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm not going to go over the top. But when I think about competition for running back 1 overall on the season, total fantasy points per game, whatever, we can't put McCaffrey in there because we don't know when he's back. And I think if you give him 5-6 games start on the field, that is probably too much for McCaffrey. But think about his competition: Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson. I'm really struggling at this point to think who's going to finish with the running back 1 over Saquon Barkley as it stands now. A lot can change. We know it's a brutal position. There's a ton of injuries that happen at that spot. But I just feel that he is, in my eyes, if we're doing a redraft as such of the running back ones this season, I'd be taking Saquon Barkley. I think he's done amazing. I'm not expecting to get 25 touchdowns, but he's done outstanding. And then just bringing it back to Dynasty, I'm thinking about, what do you do with Saquon? Like, if you're not 2-1 and you've got Saquon on your team and he's performing this well, that's got to be alarm bells. If you're 1-2 or 0-3 and you've got Saquon, get out on him now. Like, you might think week 3, week 4 is too early. You've got to make moves fast. If you get there first, you're setting the market. You've got more suitors than any other point in the season. If you're 1-2 and you've got Saquon, get rid. And then you're thinking about what sort of moves could I make to acquire Saquon because of the confidence level for the short term. If I'm a CMC owner, I'm considering that straight up for the uncertainty you've got with him. If it's contending side, which it probably should be if it's got CMC on it, that's the move I'm considering. And the only other logical one I can think of is Kyron Williams with a little bit on top. So you're the Kyron owner, add a little bit to get Saquon. The other moves where you're looking at moving off Bijans, Brees Halls, Achans, I'm struggling at this point to make that move just with how the market's reacted to Barkley and what you're potentially losing in 4 or 5 years of age for someone in week 3 or week 4. So there'll be limited moves I think you can make to acquire him. But I would be definitely moving off him if you're 1-2 or 0-3 because he has had an amazing start and that should correlate to your teams.
He has an amazing start, which you will absolutely love, Kev. Being an Eagles fan, obviously, and not going too over the top, but I mean, he's the overall number 1 player in fantasy right now, ahead of Josh Allen, ahead of all the quarterbacks. So, just shows what an amazing start he's had. And I mean, the 3 things that you've listed there: elite usage, pass game upside, and we've not even seen the true upside of that yet. And the O-line are just absolute perfect mix for someone that is bound to finish as the top 3, at least running back, if he can stay healthy. And yeah, it is a brutal position, but I wrote about it today and I said that he is going to finish as the RB1 this season. I'm 100% confident in that. As long as he stays healthy, I don't see the second half collapse that we saw by the Eagles this time last season. Beautiful to see, but not for fantasy wise.
He's got to say that on a positive topic.
It's fine, Kev. It's different this year. I'm sure it's different.
We're going to lose in playoffs, and who do we play this week?
Mate, you're going to absolutely smash us this week, and Saquon is going to go off because, we've not conceded a passing touchdown in 3 games, but we've just been run all over, which is the complete opposite. And I just think Saquon is going to destroy us this week. And yeah, I mean, if you talk about running back targets to go for, if you are contending, I just think Saquon is the perfect guy to go after right now. He would be the person that I would have full confidence in. It's not advisable to always, chuck away your first round pick this early in the season to think that you're that much of a contender, and it can easily go wrong with a major injury, and you've really lost a massive amount on that. But he's as close to a sure thing right now in fantasy, and on that team, it's just a match made in heaven. And we're not seeing Jalen Hurts siphon away those touchdowns. I think they're playing it smart. I think that's hurting Jalen Hurts slightly for his ceiling, but he's still a top 3, top 4 quarterback right now. And Saquon Barkley is absolutely providing the goods. And yeah, it's fantastic to see. And yeah, those moves that you suggested there, Kev, Kyron Plus, I think is an amazing move, especially from where Kyron was at the start of the season with all the uncertainty. If you're the Kyron owner and you stuck by him, to think that you can add a little bit and get up to Saquon Barkley, and I think that's an amazing move to make from where you were a month or 2 ago. So yeah, I can't see this slowing down for Saquon Barkley this year. He's 27, so I guess it's an age where dynasty managers get a bit nervous when he has the 27 next to his name. But I just think that they're using him in the right way. He's behind an elite offensive line. There's so many scoring opportunities in every single game for the Eagles. What's not to love right now? So, yeah, leveling up. You will certainly level up your fantasy team if you've got him in there. And if you've got him in there and you're not 2-1 at least, what are you doing? You need to cash in, because I think this is a perfect time to cash in. He's the number 1 fantasy asset. So get rid of him, cash in for a haul, and get rid of that risk. So we'll move on to these players that certainly will not take a haul to acquire these players. So this is just, rather than something that I saw this week, because as has been the first 2 weeks in fantasy, there's not been massively high scoring games. And I'm not going to come on here and talk about Juwan Jennings for 5 minutes. So I want to talk about some sneaky under the radar risers. So this is just some usages that I saw this week that sort of piqued my interest, that I think could have a role going forward. I think they're interesting, and I'd be happy to try and acquire just a few shares of these, because I think perhaps if one of these starts to pop off, I think there's some fantasy upside. So Tyrone Tracy is someone that we spoke about quite a lot in the offseason as an exciting addition to the Giants. His role has finally started expanding. So 21% snap share last week, up to 28% this week. He's getting more work on early downs, which is something that is exciting, because I think all the headlines has been on Devin Singletary and how good he's looked. But Tyrone Tracy at 4.6 yards per carry this week. Singletary was 4.1, but Singletary also had a big 43-yard run. So when you take that away, he was actually struggling at 1.5 yards per carry. So I just think Tyrone Tracy is someone that we liked in the offseason. He's a good pass catching back. And I think if this offense can continue to look half decent, then I think Tyrone Tracy's role could expand and his value will rise. So that's one. Josh Downs is another one. He returned from injury this week. He's been out during the offseason with an injury. 32 out of 41 possible snaps from 11 personnel. His target rate was 31.2%. So coming off that injury, that is really, really positive. The Colts unfortunately kept running the ball unsuccessfully. So we actually only ran 16 routes, but he was targeted 5 times. So that is a really good rate. Another one is Emmanuel Wilson, running back for the Packers, who actually outscored Josh Jacobs this week. Obviously, Marshawn Lloyd is on IR, so he's going to be out for the next few weeks, unfortunately. But it was pretty much a 50-50 split with Jacobs, although it was worth noting that the Packers were playing with a lead most of the game. So a lot of the touches for Wilson were coming in the second half and the fourth quarter of the game. But he looked really good. 50 yards rushing on the ground at 4.2, 35 receiving yards and a touchdown. So just shows that they're more confident in this guy going forward. And anything that happens to Josh Jacobs, we know he's an older back. Emmanuel Wilson's going to have a big workload on this good offense going forward. And then Xavier Legette is probably my favorite one to discuss. This is the Andy Dalton effect. We saw what a massive impact he had on this Carolina offense this week. Adam Thielen, unfortunately, was looking good, but then he's gone down to a hamstring injury and recently just been put on IR today. So he's going to be out for at least 4 games. I think that means that there's an extra role for this wide receiver too. And if Andy Dalton is coming in, slinging the ball, he's not scared whatsoever. It's like the Joe Flacco from last year. Then I think Xavier Legette is that rookie that can step into the wide receiver 2 role and just produce. We know if he does produce as a rookie, his value is going to shoot up. So I think you need to target him now. So just 4 interested names that I thought I'd bring up that I think could rise in value over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's really interesting, these 4 guys you mentioned. If I had to think about sort of my level of interest in these guys, you've done it in a perfect order, Ali. You started off with the cream of the crop for me, Tyrone Tracy, a guy that I've got a pretty solid exposure, dirty-minded people, to Tyrone Tracy. Someone that I think he hopefully gets an opportunity to be the start of this season and really show what he can do. Josh Downs, I think he's a slot guy. You mentioned 11 personnel. I think the worry is when it's not 11 personnel that he's not on the field as much. Maybe a Christian Kirk light or type trajectory, but I think whenever he's been on the field, like you mentioned, the sort of target share he's commanding is really solid for what he's shown. I think when it comes to the last 2, Emmanuel Wilson is a running back on a roster. He's a backup, and it's a running back one, which I'm not a fan of. So I'd always be looking to roster guys like him. And then the last one, Xavier Legette. I'm not a fan of Xavier Legette. I think any sort of hope I would put in him is based on Andy Dalton, the massive upgrade on Bryce Young. I think it's great for Deontay Johnson. I'm not sure outside of him who I can pitch my flag to. But yeah, I think if he's ever going to be anything, he's got a chance to do it now in this upgraded offense and with a clearer pathway to targets. So if he does shine, I'd probably be saying look to recoup your second if you had to pay that for him this previous season. But I have been lower on the get than most.
Yeah, absolutely love that, Kev. Big fans of Tyron Tracy in the off season, so hope to see his role continue to expand. And who knows what we see from Daniel Jones in this offense in the middle part of the season. It could be interesting to watch. So we'll move on to topic 3 and talking about value risers. These 3 guys, wow. I mean, it's difficult to trade for these now. Kev, another positive topic from you. What have you got here?
Yeah, I'm talking about the new wave of elite wide receivers. Now, new wave for you smart folks, you'll understand that's a famous music sort of trend in the 80s. I've been having a bit of work done on my house, and the builders, they listen to absolute 80s. So it's got me thinking of new wave, and the perfect title for this segment, new wave of elite wide receivers. You teased it. It's obviously going to be talking about Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Rome Odunze. I think one of the stats I saw from Ian Hartitz on X was the past 2 weeks have been 3 players with 300 plus air yards in the NFL. And it's these 3, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, absolutely crushing it over the start of the season. First off, Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 4 in the week, the actual wide receiver 1 on the season. So I think that completely surpassed redraft projections where people thought he might struggle with Daniel Jones and the situation and everything to do with the Giants, and the thought that Marvin Harrison would come in and crush it. And look, Harrison he's a wide receiver 12 on the season himself. But back to Neighbors, I think what we like is the fast start, the QB upgrade that's got to be on the horizon. The worst thing would be if Neighbors does so well that Daniel Jones keeps his job. So that's one to watch moving forward. His big week this week, it was the most he'd been used in the slot as well, which is something I was a big advocate of. It's what he did in college at LSU. I think the more slot usage you can get, you're getting more favourable matchups. You're on archetypes like CD Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, so that will be positives to take forward from the slot. And yeah, I think when you're looking at Malik Neighbors and thinking of where to rank him in Dynasty, he's guaranteed top 6 for me, but he got teased on last night's Rewind show from Lewis about when's he going to be knocking on the door of your Chase, your Amon-Ra, your CD Lamb, everyone at the top, really. So, yeah, what an amazing start for him. Marvin Harrison, wide receiver 20 on the week, not as strong as Neighbors this week, but an encouraging the last couple of weeks. I think his archetype, it's going to be more boom bust with him playing on the outside. For example, his wide receiver 1 week in week 2, it was on 4 catches. So to put that in perspective, obviously Neighbors had 8 or 9 catches this week to finish as wide receiver 4. So I think Marvin Harrison got a solid start. I think people will be really encouraged with what he's done. And then Rome Odunze, someone that first 2 weeks struggled with injury, but really stood out with no Keenan Allen, wide receiver 7 on the week. I think he's got an amazing run of fixtures to come up. He's someone that's going to be appealing to all builds. If you're a contender, if you're a rebuilder, Odunze is someone that I see his value growing massively. I think he's around about wide receiver 40 odd on the season. So I think that's going to continue to grow, and he's going to be someone that I'm targeting out of these 3 because I think the other 2 are pretty much untouchable right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they are untouchable. And when we talk about Neighbors' fast start, just a quick stat, he is the first wide receiver in NFL history with at least 20 receptions and 3 touchdowns in his first 3 games. And that's obviously playing with Daniel Jones. So it just shows that is he quarterback proof? Is he that good? It was just incredible to see him beat the Cleveland Browns. I was pretty scared of the matchup, thinking that he had a good week the previous week. Would this be a bit of a trap? Rookie Daniel Jones against the Browns defense, but it really wasn't. And yeah, just incredible. And made me think, which of these wide receivers between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. would I prefer in Dynasty? And I think that's a really, really, really interesting question. 100% from the start of the season, I've had these both in the same tier. I think they still are in the same tier. Kev, I'm going to pitch it to you because I like putting you on the spot. which one would you prefer in Dynasty?
What, Neighbours or Marvin Harrison?
Yeah.
Well, I think they've got to be in the same tier straight away. And
yeah,
I'll be honest, like talent. If we're talking about, I'm not going to say talent because that can be taken a few ways. I just think consistency-wise, I want Neighbours more than Marvin Harrison. He's someone that if this was flipped before the season and Neighbours was in Arizona and Harrison was in New York, I think the gap would be bigger than what it was the other way around. I think a lot of why Marvin Harrison Jr.'s had the hype is because of Kyler Murray and that situation and who his dad was. So, yeah, let's forget about that. And it's Neighbours for me, but they both had a great start. I think you'll be happy with either.
Yep, 100%. Neighbours, 19% rostership. Absolutely delighted we've taken him and reaching him ahead of Daniels in a couple of leagues as well. And yeah, just feel absolutely great about having that. But Rome Odunze is really, really interesting one. Obviously, it hasn't been spoken about. Had the big week this week. And I just think that I'm really interested to see what it looks like with Keenan Allen in the lineup as well. And I think he, as you've mentioned, he is going to be the most acquirable out of these three. Excuse me. I think I'd love to see a couple of down weeks from Rome Odunze with Keenan Allen back. And I would absolutely love to try and target Rome Odunze in Dynasty because I think the explosion is going to be there. I think Caleb Williams put together a really big week this week, 350 yards or whatever it was. And I just think if he can put that together consistently, there's going to be enough volume there for almost all three of these guys. And you got to think long term, Keenan Allen's not going to be there very long. I think that Rome Odunze is going to be the guy, even ahead of DJ Moore going forward. So the other two, absolutely untouchable. I don't even know what you'd have to pay right now in terms of picks. Obviously, the move would be to factor in one of the other elite wide receivers. Perhaps if you could package up Garrett Wilson plus to go after one of these guys, that'd probably be the move I make. With a few question marks over him, I think his usage has been fine, but the results haven't been there. So I think that's a move that I'm making at the minute. Other than that, absolutely untouchable, and you've just got to feel good if you own them right now.
Just trade him Trevor Lawrence straight up.
Well, you've not got long to do that because, yeah, that value is sinking. I'm going to give my voice another rest now, Kevs, because you've got another topic to bring up. I'm also not very happy about this topic, but I think it's one that we have to speak about. It's a down topic, and it's unfortunately about Anthony Richardson. I think it's time to have that conversation. So, Kev, over to you.
Yeah, I love having these tough conversations. Like, Anthony Richardson's a guy I've been massive on before he entered the NFL, before the draft. I thought he deserved to be highly taken, and fantasy, he deserved everything that's happened to him with his ranking and that. But I'm a massive fan, and I've got concerns about him. The game on Sunday was a real tough watch against the Bears. Just at the start of the game, that hero pass down the field, amazing connection, and then one play later, that one of the most horrific interception plays I've ever seen. Just don't know what I was thinking. I can't believe there's such a big difference between those two plays, the inconsistency there. And I think, yeah, we know the big bumps in the road with the passing game, etc. But for fantasy, we thought he'd still crush it. Quarterback 19 on the season. He's 0.3 points ahead of Bo Nix, and he's actually scored less fantasy points this season than a guy that gets absolutely no credit at all, no matter if he's great fantasy or winning games, Justin Fields. So it's been tough for Anthony Richardson. He's someone that's under surveillance from me, and I think others need to be keeping a close eye on him to see how this season looks. Situation-wise, Colts O-line, number 1 in PFF run and pass block grade. So he's in a great situation with that. Yeah, we know he's raw. He's playing his 6th, 7th NFL start. He hardly played in college. He's going to take time, but we know that time's not granted very long to QBs in the NFL. And also, look at the fixtures to start the season. He struggled against Green Bay and Chicago, both decent. He's got the Steelers this week, who they're a top couple defense in the NFL. But yeah, just looking at his rush yards, 37 and 24 last couple of weeks is not what I expected to look like. I would say patience is key. You've probably got this season to decide, but the market will react, and you don't want to be too late on this guy. He's already fallen behind Kyler Murray and the absolute GOAT, Jaden Daniels, at keep trade cut. So, yeah, it's a tough one for me to talk about because I'm a Richardson fan, but I've also got to be realistic. When the games were going on Sunday, I think the early games had just finished, and I got an offer from a Richardson manager trying to get my Kyler Murray. And I politely declined that one. But it just shows you that people are starting to see the cracks appearing, and yeah, you've got a bit of time yet, but I will be keeping all eyes on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry, I had to cough again then. And also don't like talking about the subject, so just wanted to pause, gather my thoughts. But I just read the most perfect quote on Twitter this week. I want to give a shout out to @Haas_football. And this is, he said that Anthony Richardson can complete passes that 99% of hold on.
He can't spell.
That 1% of NFL quarterbacks cannot complete. So he's absolutely amazing with them throws. But then he cannot complete passes that 99% of NFL quarterbacks can. And I just think it sums it up perfectly, where the most basic pass he's absolutely fluffing, and that one in the red zone where he just looped it up to the defender was one of the worst passes I've ever seen in my life. You can just tell he's not comfortable with that touch out of his hand. He'd rather just sling it deep, put some elevation, some rocket behind it. But yeah, it's not looking great, I have to say, for someone that I own. He's one of my most owned quarterbacks in Dynasty. Happy to admit that. Still not going to be off him. I think he's got at least this season, unless it turns out really, really bad. But I think they're still going to give him another shot next year. I think there's just too much upside for the Colts to move on. They're going to win enough games where they're not going to be in a position to draft a quarterback. I'm just not panicking at the minute. He's raw. I think they've got to understand that he's raw. But the key is for him to win games in Indy, because if he shows that he's not got that ability whatsoever, it's going to be I say Justin Fields situation in Chicago. It just feels like something similar. But yeah, I'm not panicking yet. He's falling, but I've probably got too many shares where I wouldn't be investing in Anthony Richardson just yet. If you're not in that situation, I think you should be grabbing some shares of Anthony Richardson. But certainly under surveillance would be the key, just because it's not been as we've expected. He's not been rushing. I think we all expected it to be messy in terms of the throwing numbers, the interceptions, the touchdowns, but we thought that you'd get at least 50 yards rushing a game from Richardson, and they're just not letting him do that, or the defenses are containing him and saying, beat us with the pass, which is something that he's just not been able to do right now. Whereas you look at the likes of Jaden Daniels, especially against the Bengals on Monday Night Football, and he 2 incompletions in the whole game, and his touch. I mean, some people just said that he couldn't pass, but if you watched any film of him in college, his deep ball was absolute perfection, and he showed it with limited weapons because he's not got the best cast there. Whereas I think Richardson, he's not really got that excuse now, because they drafted him a wide receiver early. They've got Josh Downs back now, who could be a really key piece. And obviously Michael Pittman, it's not great for Michael Pittman. I did have a great stat. Where is it? Here it is. Where NFL offenses by catchable throws per game. This is at Fantasy Points data this was from. And the Colts ranked dead last. So there's only been 15.7 catchable passes thrown by Anthony Richardson per game. So 15... There's not a lot of passes to go round. There's not a lot of scope for his upside, especially if he's not rushing. So, under surveillance, not panicking yet. But it's certainly time to have that conversation about him. So we'll move on to, my down topic. And this has been the talk of the whole Dynasty community through 3 weeks, and this has been the tight end wasteland. I was going to call it the landscape, but it's more of a wasteland than a landscape. And this is heavily featuring Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, just because I think expectations were high coming into the season, but we did not think it would be this bad through 3 weeks. So I've kind of broke it down into 3 different tiers where you've got really only a couple of tight ends where you feel good about owning these guys. The first one's going to be Trey McBride, is someone that is going to be no surprise the way he finished last season. The second half of last season was beautiful. It's not quite been as high in terms of the ceiling, but in terms of what you're getting from the tight end position, you've got to be really happy to have Trey McBride, and he's got to be a top 3 Dynasty tight end right now. You've got Brock Bowers, who is the runaway Dynasty tight end 1 on Keep Trade Cut. He's miles ahead of the rest already. Really, really impressive through 3 games. And yeah, if you had that mid-first round investment in Brock Bowers, I think you feel really, really good. And someone that you don't really want to trade away right now unless you're getting an absolute haul. I wouldn't be trading him away because I think the future's so bright. The next tier down, I've got Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts, and Dalton Kincaid. I think 3 obviously young tight ends at various stages of their career. But I think you feel okay if you own these guys. I think Sam Laporta not been a great start to the season, but I think there's been reasons behind that. I think he's obviously a bit banged up now, but I still think there's a lot of hope there for Sam Laporta. This Lions offense hasn't been clicking. It's not like it's been, obviously Jameson Williams has been great, but it's not been amazing throughout the whole of the team. So I think they'll get it going. Kyle Pitts as well has been absolutely fine. And then Dalton Kincaid, not been great, but last night did show a bit of improvement for the Bills. I think he will be fine. In terms of Dynasty, I feel fine about holding these 3 guys. And then come on to the last 4. George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. I'll tack on TJ Hawkinson as well. 4 sort of older guys. Perhaps TJ Hawkinson is not as old as those, but what an absolute disappointment it's been from Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. The usage has been, it's been like last season in terms of they're just not leaning on him. Rashee Rice has been an absolute revelation. They've got a lot of moving pieces to that offense where they don't have to rely on Travis Kelce. The defense is so good. They don't even have to score 25 points in a game to win it. So wait until the playoffs and you're going to see prime Travis Kelce again, which is what they want to happen. But in terms of fantasy managers, it's absolutely terrible. The same with Mark Andrews. He ran 4 routes this week, which was just absolutely unacceptable. I suppose they were playing with a big lead the whole game. If he's still not healthy from that car accident, what did he have before the start of the season? I think that goes some way to explain it. Isaiah Likely's not even getting targeted either. So I think something's wrong there. But it is very, very difficult if you own these guys, just because I think, what do you do if you're a contender going into the season with Mark Andrews or Kelce? You probably feel really good about that. Right now, they're falling behind. And I just think, what is the move to make? This is why I'm pitching it to you, Kev. What is the move to make? Do you just stick by these guys hoping that it gets better? Or do you try and trade up? What are you going to have to pay on top of Mark Andrews to get to a Trey McBride? It's going to be a lot, isn't it, the asking price? So what would you be thinking if you owned those guys as a contender?
I think first of all, there's a bit of comfort in the fact that nobody's standing out. Like we mentioned, Brock Bowers, that he had a fast start the first few weeks. This week he didn't do as well. Trey McBride, he's injured now. He has had an okay start to season. Dalton Kincaid a bit up and down. So you've got that comfort that any team that's a contender in your league has likely got issues at tight end like you have. So everyone's in the same basket. There's no need to really panic or worry at this stage and make stupid decisions because nobody's standing out. And actually, I think it could be someone like Jake Ferguson that emerges as a guy that we can trust that volume he's going to get. He's back from injury, had a great game against the Ravens. Maybe he's a guy that steps up and can be that sort of short-term piece that Evan Engram and David Njoku was last season. in Dynasty. So I think no need to panic because everyone's doing shit. Is basically the straight answer. But then I'm thinking about like Mark Andrews, he is the big red flag. He is that red alert going off in your head. Like 4 outs, how can you trust that? Like we can say that everyone's struggling in Dynasty every week, but they're still accumulating 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. 4 outs. That's terrible, and I struggle to think of a move where he's included in the deal, because who's going to want a player that's on getting 4 outs? He's in a unique situation that Isaiah Likely's on the roster already, so it's different to Kelsey, where you think if it's a tight end catch the ball in KC, it's going to be Kelsey, or maybe the odd one to Noah Gray. It's really difficult for Andrews. I think if you're struggling with him, you maybe have to pay down and hope that someone hits for a little bit, like, I don't know, Brian Mew for someone, but you're not going to do that. Carl's got it. You're not going to do that because it's Mark Andrews, and while he's on a game day active roster, you've got to play him. So, yeah, I think at this stage, don't worry because no one's standing out. But in a couple of weeks' time, we're hoping it's more clearer and some of this waste has been removed, and we've got a clear pathway.
Yeah, I think by perhaps week 5, week 6, I think we're going to have a clearer picture as to exactly what's going on and who's going to start standing out more. Jake Ferguson is a guy definitely excited about. Looked great on his comeback this week, and obviously there's plenty of targets for him. You've got to think the likes of Evan Ingram, David Njoku. They've been injured. They're coming back, and David Njoku's an absolute stud. So, don't panic. But I just loved listening to the Fantasy Rewind, Hannah and Paul's description of the tight end position. Hannah said, you just want to cry, just cry about it. And Paul called it an absolute shit show. So absolute perfect descriptions on just the wasteland right now. It's difficult. If it goes any further, we're going to have to campaign to get rid of the position altogether because it's just absolute pain. Unless you're wearing Brock Bowers. So we're going to move on to our final topic, and it'll be the traffic light game. So this is a feature that we started the season, and we like it. It's been successful. We like it. I think it gives us a quick, good gauge about where we are on some of these players. Hopefully you'll like my selections tonight, Kev. But just tell us, the situation, red light, amber, or green, as to whether you're confident or not on these guys for Dynasty. So obviously start the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence, the 0-3 quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. How are you feeling about Trevor Lawrence? What's your situation in Dynasty? Is it still green, or are you changing color?
I don't know why you're saying still green. It's never been green on Trevor Lawrence. let's say still amber, but God, got some absolute crap last season for, I think, shared a stat about him and Daniel Jones being similar, and then it's reappeared this year in a lot better format and presentation from someone else, so I can't give credit to, because I stole my idea originally. But you just brought the colour red. It's red. Like he's always been overhyped, and he's not doing it. They're on free. Tough scene.
Yep, I think I'm very, very, very close to red. I just think I've called him a perfect, him and Brock Purdy, perfect quarterback twos on your fantasy team. But I mean, Brock Purdy, at least he's producing touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence is just not getting it done with what was supposed to be a better cast of weapons this year to suit his playing style at pushing the ball down the field. It's not happening. Is it Doug Peterson's fault? How many coaches are going to take the blame for Trevor Lawrence underperforming once again? It's very much close to red, and perhaps he's on surveillance as well for future shows. Jared Goff similarly had a poor start to the season. Kev, got the bag in the off season. How do you feel about Jared Goff?
Still on green for me, no concerns.
Yeah, I think similarly. Absolutely love Jared Goff. Own him a ton in Dynasty. The offense has been stuttering. Got the win this week. Hopefully they figure it out. Get Sam Laporte involved. There's too many weapons there for Jared Goff to foul. Yeah, still love Jared Goff. We'll start with the running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs is someone that has been okay for fantasy, but you don't love to see David Montgomery having another 100-yard game. How's your feeling on Gibbs?
It's probably an amber just because after the rookie season, I thought there might be some uptick in the pass usage, and it's not been there. There's been a slight emergence of Jameson, and there's been the injury to Sam Laporte as well, which he's been underperforming as well. So and it's not gone to Gibbs. So I think amber, but that's probably more just based on him being running back 3 in Dynasty than anything else. I think there's more questions about that ranking than his actual play.
Yeah, completely agree. I think if you own him, no panic for Dynasty, but it's not been the exact usage you want to see or the output, should I say. But again, a lot of it has been the offense not clicking, and Montgomery has been absolutely balling. Probably does not deserve to be running back 3 where he was preseason. Disappointing that we felt like he could have been one of the guys to make that leap into the top tier, but not come through just yet. So amber. Oh dear, Rashad White, Kev. Is it just red? Is it just simply red? Wait.
Simply red. Wait. That is funny. God, this is red as Rudolph's nose, isn't it? Like what a fall from grace it's been. Bucky Evans absolutely crushing it. Writing's on the wall. Big trouble for Rashad White.
Yep, I can hear Mick Hucknall in the background singing it is simply red for Rashad White. We'll move quickly on to Tank Dell, someone that has also been underperforming, had a little bit of a better week this week. How are you feeling about Tank Dell in Dynasty, Kev?
He's sort of an amber for me. I think that I think he's an easy pivot personally because I can't see his value going up this year. And then it'll be on the basis of Diggs being around next season. That could hammer him even further. So I think if you can get good value for Dell, I'll be pivoting.
Yeah, that'd be the same advice from me. I think he still holds pretty high steed in terms of the Dynasty community. Still like Tank Dell. Everyone thinks that Stephon Diggs is one and done in Houston. And the usage has been fairly similar. The snap percentages, blah, 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 to the other 2 wide receivers. But for whatever reason, it's just not happened for Dell. So, yeah, probably an amber. Hold or sell if you can get a good price for him. Last wide receiver will be Jalen Polk, someone that a lot of people have high hopes for. Just been an absolute afterthought and not been great. So are you panicking just yet, Kev? I know it's a rookie. We shouldn't really panic too much about a rookie, but he's not really been featured whatsoever yet. So would you be panicking at all?
Probable amber. Like I wasn't super high on him as a prospect, but I think a slow start is not massively concerning at this stage.
Yeah. I think wait, their schedule's been absolutely brutal to start the season. Wait for Drake May to get in the lineup because he could start going to his favorite targets, and you never know, Jalen Polk could start being used down the stretch. But we'll move on to, this is tight ends that we know where this one is at the minute. But Mark Andrews, is it as bad as red, or is it still amber at the minute?
It's got to be red. I've got him on a few contenders, and it's trying to find that move in your league, which or how much more rope can you give him, I guess.
Yep, agreed. I'll give it a red. And then the last one, probably the reason that Mags is not on the show, we've had to include Dalton Kincaid on this list. Is it still green or is it amber? Has it not been at what you expected from the start of the season?
I'm edging more green than amber, but that's probably down to the landscape outside of Kincaid. I think if Titan was flying like certain parts last season, it would be an amber. So we'll give him a green because Mags isn't here, I'll be a hype man.
Damn, well, I thought we were going to give him shit because he's not here, but if you're panicking after 3 games about Kincaid, when, as you mentioned, the tight end landscape's been absolutely woeful, then I think you're a bit crazy. So yeah, it's going to be a green. We can't be too panicky just yet about Kincaid. He is going to finish as the tight end 1 in fantasy this year, according to our good friend Max.
Who?
So that brings us to the end of tonight's show, where we have reviewed this week's action with the talking points for Dynasty. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on X and on YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard and at Wildcard Dynasty, and join us for our show every single Tuesday of the season. So thank you once again. Have a good one, and we'll see you again soon.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.